I don't think anyone could have prepared me for the emotional roller coaster that I was about to experience. Or maybe that's just because I wouldn't have listened to them anyway. Because in that moment, all I could hear was the voice in my head that said, I'm moving out. I'm moving across the world.
And then it really hit me. I was like, oh my God, I'm alone in this country.
In a way, you're never 100% happy because you're always missing something.
And it's always this fight between being selfish and selfless.
I really feel guilty for being here sometimes. I'm a terrible daughter.
They know the person I was when I was 18, when I lived with them. And that's not me at all anymore.
I know there's a word, I can't remember in another language, but it's like missing something you haven't had or missing something you haven't seen yet. And that's what living abroad was to me.
Well, I'm quite an ambitious person, and I could already see that the industry that I'm passionate about is not very big in Latvia.
I moved to the States because I was a swimmer. So I had a swimming scholarship to study there in the States. And that was the first time I left the country, like my country, ever in my life.
Yeah, I didn't even knew like, okay, Amsterdam, there's a place called Amsterdam. And it was like first time coming out of India for me, or any place out of India.
My dad is afraid of everything, so he was super afraid. He was like, but why? Like, what are you missing that this context cannot provide to you? Like, what can I do? Like, if you want to do it, go ahead, but why you need to just move out?
Because it was always a desire for me to like move abroad. They weren't surprised. It was almost like, okay, it's happening. Like, she's not all talk, she's action.
I decided to take a look at grad school. Grad school in the US, incredibly expensive. It's like $60,000 per year. No one can afford that. I made a whole PowerPoint presentation for my parents to present to them. The name of the PowerPoint presentation was Grad School or Bust. Because I was like, the life that I'm living right now is not exactly what I want to be doing with my life career-wise.
At that moment, 17-year-old me didn't think much about it. I mean, in Aruba, moving out to go study abroad was not an uncommon thing. Maybe even more common than not. So I guess my parents weren't really surprised. But if we were birds, then all they wished was for me to stay in the bird's nest a little longer, cuddled up in their safety and warmth, protected from all the danger of the world. But they didn't say that. Instead, they told me to go spread my wings. And I don't think little me understood how hard that must have been for them.
I was very excited because, I mean, it's something new and I was looking forward to it since I was a teenager.
I was excited because I think I was that rebel teenager that was like, I want to leave my parents, I don't want to see them anymore.
Like first day I arrived, I was like, oh, it's just like the movies. I grew up watching maybe songs from MTV. People just look like in the movies or songs. And 1 week I feel like I was in a high, like, oh my God. And then reality settled in, okay, oh, it's not a utopia that I think it is to be.
And at first we were excited, but then in 1 month I understood, okay, there's so many things that I need to do now, like going for groceries, like cooking and then studying as well.
And then I remember the first night in college in my room alone, and I was just crying. I'm like, I miss my mommy.
Like for the first week, I was like, I don't know anything. How to use public transport or what to buy, like what is even sunflower oil. I know like back home, I've been to supermarkets, I can buy stuff, but now everything is in Dutch.
I wasn't really doing great, but without realizing it. So it took me a while to give myself to allow myself to say that it's okay not being okay.
I was calling my mom almost like every other day because I really felt like, yeah, I don't have anyone to talk to, and it felt weird to just like go out and talk to people, like, you know, meet other people. I felt like a piece of myself was missing somehow.
Like I've called my mom so many times and was like, oh yeah, I feel like I'm not clever enough, I can't do this.
And you're gonna feel those feelings of like, why did I do this? Like, no one knows me.
Definitely a wave of, this is the best idea I've ever had. This is the worst idea I've ever had. This is the best idea. This is the worst one. Yeah.
In the beginning, it was all just pure excitement. It felt like I was a little bird that was leaving the nest for the first time, flying freely. And then reality kicks in, because I'm not a bird and I can't fly. So I landed flat on my face. Multiple times, actually. But eventually, I made friends, I learned how to cook, and somewhat learned how to be financially responsible. I guess it became my home away from home. Or at least, that's what I told myself for a long time.
It's really weird to go on vacation home, because it's the place that I'm used to and I grew up in, but now it's the place where I take a break from my actual life.
It feels like I am a special guest on a TV show, on my friends or family's TV show, and I'm like the special guest that appears every once in a while.
Yeah, it is also hard because at some point I feel that they don't know me that well anymore. Like the memory that, oh, it's a little puppy, I'm so sorry. That's so cute.
Yeah, it felt like I'm not a part of this life anymore, and it's like they are getting to know new me. So they kind of know me, but at the same time, no.
They know the person I was when I was 18, when I lived with them. And that's not me at all anymore.
It was weird. I could see how our perspectives on life and everything changed a lot. But at the same time, there was this feeling that I returned to my teenage years. You know, it was like this warm feeling that, okay, what's happening? It's not my life, but at the same time, it's something so familiar and so something that I really miss.
I think it was my birthday. They got me like a Mickey pajama and it was pink and all that. And I was like, thanks. But I was like, no, I don't like this.
So I didn't go back.
How long?
Yet.
2 years.
Yeah, almost 2 years.
For 2 years.
Yeah. I want to go back, of course, but I don't want to. Yeah, I think this is my journey right now. So it's like, yeah. When I'm ready to go back, I'm gonna go back. Not to live there, but just to, yeah.
Every time I go and visit them, I'm also missing here. While I'm in here, I miss there in a different way.
Because there's some problems, and family has problems. It's not crazy problems. When I go back, they become my responsibility. Initially, I used to feel a little bit bad, but I don't. Because I realized they only have me to rely on. They can't rely on someone else.
In a way, you're never 100% happy because you're always missing something. Because I go home and I miss my independent life, my friends, your flat, your space, your bike. You miss all of the things that are intrinsically yours over here.
But I think this feeling of loneliness in a way doesn't go away, never. You always feel a part of you is missing.
Each time I went back to Aruba to visit, each time it felt a little less like home. And I hated that mixed feeling. Feeling so excited to see my friends and family, but also being faced with this hard reality that this is no longer my life. And that while I was gone, life on that small island went on without me, whether I liked it or not.
In Scotland, I had to go back a bit more often, unplanned, just for family funerals and things like that. So that's another aspect of moving abroad that is very sobering. Yeah, you go home and some people aren't there anymore.
Of course, the thought of, for example, death pursue you a lot. So you're selfish because you are far away from, at least for myself, from my grandmother, for example. And we know death is the only thing we're sure, right, in life. So it's like, ooh.
In a weird way, you can keep yourself a bit head in the sand about who's gone, because you go home and you didn't have to deal with kind of the aftermath of someone passing away. You get that terrible phone call, but you don't see the family all in the living room together, very upset over this. You skip out on that. So then when you go home, I found a lot of the experiences were delayed for me.
For example, my grandpa passed away a few months ago. And in a way I was like, oh, I wish I was there, but by being here helped me deal with that better. Like it made me remember the good times that I had with him when I was living in there, and not like have those memories when he was sick or being there when he was sick. I don't have those. So in my brain I only have good memories with him, and I don't regret that at all. Yeah.
So the only reason that I will go back is just to share more moments, but not to move again, no. But for now, I mean.
I definitely know I don't want to come back to Colombia. It's too different, and I love my country. I'm grateful for what it is, for the people there. But I know I won't have the life that I have here.
Now that I see how things are here, I don't want to give up the opportunities that I have here. Maybe eventually, I mean, I really love home. I love Italy, so probably at some point I'll go back. I just don't know when.
Like my dad really expected me to like live in the house, like the childhood home, because that's just a cultural thing. Like you just kind of stay in the house until you get married to your partner in Colombian culture, and that's just a very normal thing. And I was like, I'm gonna go move across the world.
No, I think they are fine now. My mom, it's different. Like for her, it was harder. And I think she's like all the time hoping I'm gonna call, I'm gonna say, hey mom, next month I'm there. But no, for now it's not gonna happen, and she knows that.
For example, for my career right now, I'm thinking of moving to another country or maybe even to the United States. But then my family are already like, oh, that's even more far away. Like, no, and I'm always like in the middle of choosing myself and what I really want in life, and at the same time kind of not giving up my family, because it always feels like that I'm leaving them behind in a way.
And it's always this fight between being selfish and selfless. How much I live for myself and how much I live for my family or my cared ones.
They're so happy for me that I have my life here now and that I am so happy. But I feel like for them it's quite hard.
You miss their life as well. So it kind of feel a little bit like painful to prioritize yourself.
I noticed that like I really feel guilty for being here sometimes.
But I don't know, it's your life at the same time.
Even though I know that like I cannot be blamed for it, because of course I should like choose my own life and happiness.
I have that feeling after every single time I call my parents. And I'm a terrible daughter. I'm also an only child to my parents.
Also, I'm an only child, so I feel like I am like abandoning like them, and you know, I am a huge part of their life, so I literally took away that part from them.
Like the airport, it's still always tears. So, and I'm like almost on the borderline of like hyperventilating, and my parents are now almost like, Brooke, like you do this like so often, why are you so upset? Because there is that guilt with like you're actively choosing to leave, and yeah, that I feel like you feel more responsibility when you're the one leaving.
Over days, it kind of comes down a little bit of like the guilty feeling, because I'm like I understand that I made the right decision for myself.
I think parents, like at least my mom, she realizes that like, okay, I have to live my own life as well. I think she's understanding. The one thing is like my dad died when I was very young. So I feel more responsible. If my dad was there, I was like, okay, mom and dad, go figure out, it's your problem. But now I feel a bit more responsible.
It's one thing to move out with the plan of going back after a few years. That was my plan too. But it's almost been 10 years and I'm still here. And both me and my family know that I'm probably not gonna come back for now. And what does that mean? How much more things am I gonna miss out on?
I think you start having these really serious conversations with yourself about, okay, what happens when mom and dad get sick, or what happens when my sister is having babies, or especially if I think about myself like getting a partner and if I have kids and over here, it's like, okay, what am I gonna do when I'm pregnant? Is mom gonna fly over here? Am I gonna have the baby in Canada? Like, you just start having these like crazy conversations with yourself. They're always at 2 a.m. It's just like, it's very overwhelming. And
I have a little brother who is like 7 years old right now. Then I go back to visit my family and I see how he's grown like so fast, and I don't have a very good connection with him anymore or something because I'm far away.
You know, there's moments where you're kind of like, what are all these sacrifices for? Like what I'm missing the births of, you know, the next generation of the family, missing the funerals of the past. And
that's when I realized, okay, maybe this goal that I have, maybe it will never be achieved and I can keep running towards it, but then I will miss my actual life.
So yeah, I think it is like the transition into, okay, this is no longer just a short-term plan. This is like the long-term plan.
Now I'm realizing that my parents are getting old, and that's something nobody tells you.
Every time I go home, I just see them get a little bit older. And I'm like, oh, especially like in Colombian culture, you don't move your parents into a nursing home. That's like a big no-no. And also my parents have also said that to me as well. But as like a child, like teenager hearing that, you're like, that's so far away.
You start having these incredibly like deep conversations with like just yourself as well as loved ones, almost planning for things that hopefully are like 30, 40 years in the future. But it's crazy that this is now a bit more in front of you than if you were at home.
What do you call home now?
That's the question.
So in my hometown, there's this really cute bar that has this sign that says like this super cliche sentence, home is not a place, it's a feeling. Okay, we all know that, but...
This might sound like really cheesy, but like home isn't like a physical place. It's like where the people that make you feel like you're at home are.
I think home is where my family is, genuinely.
For me, I've been living here for 2 years already, and I still call home my hometown.
Home can be anywhere if I put my mind to it. When you consider home as like back home, you cannot live here. You will always be missing it. You have to make up your mind that, okay, the current place you're living is your home. Maybe it's temporary, it's okay.
I think that in order for a place to turn into your home, it takes a long time. You really have to build a lot in an environment, but...
And yeah, I think now my home is here.
But I do relate with the thing that it's a feeling, because I can still feel at home here in certain moments, even though it's not like my home. I don't know.
17-year-old me found it relatively easy to choose for herself, but now it's harder. Maybe because I now know how fragile life really is, or maybe because I've now formed my own values. I used to think that it was so brave of me to have moved abroad, and I still do, but now I also know how brave it was of my parents to let me do so. And if we were birds, then all I could hope is that they're there in that bird's nest, watching me fly and fall and get up again and again. I hope they're proud, and I hope that they know I'm proud of them.
I mean, in the end, it's okay. Like, you also learn to approach the relationship in a different way, and I think the good part about it is that I have strengthened the relationship with my parents, because distance does help a lot sometimes.
Like, it's done wonders for my relationship with my parents, because you're not nitpicking about the most random, unimportant things.
My mom has been a rock, and she was like, if something I want to teach you in life is like, go and make the risk, take the risk, and as long as you're happy, I'm happy.
Just yesterday, I was like riding through Amsterdam on my bike, and I realized like I'm so happy here now. Like, wherever you're gonna move, like it's not gonna be easy from the beginning. It's always gonna be hard.
I feel that it's important to know that you're not alone. That you're not the only one going through this and with these emotions.
You're gonna go through a lot of shit, but it's gonna be worth it at the end. Everything, like, times put everything in, in the place. I really think so. So just go for it. Don't be afraid. No, be afraid and go and do that, because that's the only way to do it.
Moving out and pursuing your passion and your interests, and moving away from your comfort zone, basically. Essentially, it's just moving away, like going out of your comfort zone. It will always be hard, but in the end, I know from my experience at least, whenever I actually did that, it became better every time. So of course there will be like disadvantages and downtimes and everything, but in the end, somehow it will always get better because you will always choose yourself.
But I don't think the guilt of what will inevitably happen, that shouldn't be the reason you stay home if you have that feeling to go.
I love that. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I hope I'm not just a yapper.